Happy Wednesday, War Report family. Welcome to the Midweek Report. Tonight's Midweek Report, we're talking about the wide receiver room. How much of an upgrade did Auburn make this year, and how improved can this unit be for Auburn in the landscape of the SEC? Let's talk about it. Let's get into today's Midweek Report. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day to all of the War Report family. We are here, the Midweek Report, brought to you by the good folks at the Rage Room. 2 locations to go out there and get your rage out. That is Opelika and 1510 2nd Avenue in Opelika, Alabama, or 2616 7th Avenue South in Birmingham. And Birmingham has the axe throwing going on as well coming up for you all. So you guys can let all of the rage out in a multiplicity of ways. Go break stuff, go throw things. Be angry, but sin not, I think is what the good book says. And the Rage Room allows you to do that. We're here. C-Dub has the night off. Myself, Mike G, in here talking a little Auburn football tonight. Mike G, before we get into the conversation, tell the people other ways that they can support what's going on with the War Report.
Yeah. Very anxious to get into this conversation. So, guys, bear with us. Look, join as a member. We tell you guys every single live stream why you should do this. Season's only 24 days away, Ike. So we're getting ready for some Auburn football. They open against Alabama A&M. The War Report will be with you every step of the way. Hit that join button. Join our community. If you see a bunch of people with a green name and you don't have one, you haven't joined yet. So take that next step. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate our community for taking advantage of this. Let's see if we can get 50 going tonight. You guys read the title. We're talking wide receivers. So if you want to follow up on this conversation and you don't want to do it on YouTube, check us out on podcast, every podcast platform. We are there giving you guys lots of audio only content. So if you can't catch it on YouTube, catch us on podcast. Also, this show is brought to you in part by JOYMODE. Let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. But the problem is sometimes our intrusive thoughts get in the way, Ike. And our performance, maybe we're just feeling like we're not going to reach our full potential. That's where our friends at JOYMODE come in. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that gives you the extra dose of confidence and saves you the embarrassment and hassle of a traditional erection pill. Don't get a sketchy gas station pill. Go to usejoymode.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping with code REPORT. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code REPORT at usejoymode.com. We appreciate them for sponsoring us. I trip out like this whole list of things I skipped over.
Yes, indeed. We definitely appreciate JOYMODE for being a sponsor. We appreciate you guys dropping in with us, and we appreciate Coach Hugh Freeze for doing all of the things. And Marcus Davis, give a shout out to Marcus Davis for making this wide receiver room be what it is and all of this excitement. If you guys missed the morning drop today, I was talking about some of the comments from the offensive players. It was Rivaldo Fairweather, it was Damari Alston, and Sam Jackson, all a part of the media availability, and all of them expressing confidence in Peyton Thorne. And a big portion of the confidence was they feel like an upgrade happened in this wide receiver room for Auburn this season. Mike G, did Auburn get better at wide receivers? Is this an improved room over last year?
I think that the additions of Keandre Lambert-Smith and Cam Coleman they would be improvements if nobody left. So if all things stay the same and you just added those two guys, you are better. You are a better team with Cam Coleman. That's like asking, hey, are you better with LeBron or without LeBron? The answer is you're better with LeBron. If anybody's watching the Olympics, this man is 40. He's up there with us.
Yes.
And he's playing like he's 25. He is undoubtedly the best player. You're better. You're a better team with LeBron. The impact of him on your team is worth plus 20 games, I think, in the NBA from wherever you were at. I think that plus Cam Coleman, I said this on previous shows, he might be good for a whole win or two. That's huge. Now, if you think about the games that came down to those plays that just didn't get made, Cam Coleman, I think, is that dude. I think he's going to show that he's that dude. And yes, I think the addition of him and Perry Thompson, and now we're hearing Malcolm Simmons making plays in camp. We spoke with Kay and Leah earlier in the week, and he said, look, man, Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons are guys to watch. They're making plays in camp.
Right.
So much so that when I tweeted it, Auburn Football's main account put it out there with highlights of those guys making plays in camp. So it's exciting times. I think this is a better wide receiver room. I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm there. And I think that they got a whole spring to get on the same page with their quarterback, which gives them more confidence in him more confidence in them, which should lead to more production on the field this fall.
All right. Well, let's talk about the room as it exists right now. And looking back, I showed Mike G this graphic before we got on, and he was like, when you look at this in context, it's crazy to think about how much of a turnover happened with this wide receiver room in this offseason. And that is not the right one. I want the wide receiver graphic. I just put a graphic up there. Where did my graphic go?
It's coming back. While you're pulling that up, I will tell you, I have been very encouraged. Our guys over at cameragraphics.net, if you guys need camera stuff, please go over to visit them over there on University, cameragraphics.net. They do great work over there. They supply a lot of stuff for our interviews. Man, let me tell you something. The owner said, Mike, tell me about this team. And for the first time in talking to him, I was portraying a lot of enthusiasm. He was like, whoa, you're real enthusiastic about this. That says something to me. And I said, look, man, I think the players are enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And their enthusiasm has not and this is not one of those things where, yeah, of course they're enthusiastic. No, they were not this enthusiastic last year. I'm telling you, they were not this enthusiastic last year. They are 100% this enthusiastic this year. And I think that's going to pay off. Peyton Thorne is very, very, very hopeful. Even elated at the weapons that he has, and talking to him about what's different and why it's going to be different. I was really taken back by how he described what the issues were last year. Now, I've said this before. I cannot betray confidence. So I can't to say everything that he said, but I can tell you that if you know what he's saying is true, and I don't have any reason to believe that it's not, and they fixed those things plus the addition of the talent, they could be a lot better than they were last year and a lot better than people are projecting. Now, we said this as well, too. Quietly, Hugh Freeze believes he has a better team than he's letting on in the media. And the players are projecting that in these conversations that we're having with them one-on-one and saying, yeah, man, like, watch out. And now we're getting closer to the season, and it's harder to contain that. That excitement is starting to leak out. And they're telling people in the media now, listen, you better watch out for this Auburn offense. Sleep on us if you want to.
Yeah, I like the confidence that they're projecting.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing it manifest on the field. Here is that wide receiver room.
All right.
Looking at the returners for this team, really only two guys. I mean, the other guys are coming back, but they're all walk-on guys. Didn't get them any snaps really. Camden Brown, the junior, Caleb Burton, the sophomore, are the only guys that have come back from last year's team. That's it. And then you look at all of the guys that left: Coy Moore, Shane Hooks, Jay Fair, VAR, Nick Martiner, Jair Shorter, Malcolm Johnson, Omari Kelly, all guys who got snaps last year, not returning for Auburn coming up into this season. And then we talk about the additions: Bryce Kane, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, the Freeze 4. And if you want to get Freeze 5 in there, depending upon who you are, if you're talking about the freshman Freeze 5, you add Dylan Gentry.
Yes,
if you talk about the likely players that would be the Freeze 5 going into this season, you would add transfer Keandre Lambert-Smith. And you really can add a sixth in there, for being honest, because Robert Lewis, I think, is a slept-on member of this team going into this season.
Made the Bolitnikov watch list.
Robert Lewis this season. Then you have Sam Jackson, the slot receiver, transferred over from Cal quarterback from Cal, Cameron King, also the walk-on there, walk-on freshman guy that's been added to this room. This is a prolific group of guys that are going to be catching passes from Peyton Thorne this season. Mike G, what is you already said, yes, this is an improved group, but why do you feel like, other than Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, as reasonings, why do you feel like this room's going to be better? And the question is, can this be one of the top producing units in the SEC this season?
Well, I think that it's improved because once you get out of 12 personnel, you have more playmakers. You have more go-to guys. And let's say, God forbid, there's an injury. You have a guy, Perry Thompson, that may be able to step in for either Cam Coleman or Keandre Lambert-Smith. And look, man, the 2 and 3 deep is important. A lot of teams have that guy, but when that guy goes down, if your passing game goes down, you're not in a great position. And what Hugh Freeze is trying to do through recruiting is not only recruit playmakers, but he's trying to create depth. I think that's been the strength of the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Texas and the Michigans of the world and Ohio States for so long. Guy leaves, he graduates, he transfers, no worries. We got the next 4 or 5 star that can step in. Well, you might be seeing from an early time that Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons are preparing themselves to be significant contributors this season when they're called upon. And if you're those young men, you want to make it really hard on Hugh Freeze to keep you off the field.
Right.
You do. So if you're going to go out there, you're going to be okay, but play mediocre, you're going to sit. Because Perry Thompson is saying, I'm ready to make plays now.
Yeah.
Malcolm Simmons has taken on that challenge as well. And from what we hear, Bryce Kane, the little thunderbolt, also has, that potential. So, I think it's about depth. And we'll see. I think that those guys will allow Freeze to expand his offense beyond what I call sometimes very, very boring 12 personnel.
Yeah.
Sometimes 12 can be boring.
I don't know that I agree with that 12 personnel can be boring. It just depends on how you use it, but I do understand why.
Well, if you're only going to throw to one tight end, if you only got one tight end on the field, it's a threat, right? And you don't have 2 really, really dynamic wideouts. 12 personnel is boring.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm all right with 12 personnel.
I want to see some 11. I want to see some 10. I want to see him put a nightmare lineup of receivers on the field and say, look, you try to play us over the top.
Try to figure out how to stop.
Figure out how to stop this guy, man. If you drop back into a zone, we have guys who will find the holes in the zone and catch the football. What we're hearing out of camp is a lot of these guys have a nose for the football. They just know how to go find it.
Right.
And so Peyton Thorne is having the most fun he's ever had in his life on the Plains because no matter where he throws it, there's somebody there to make a play. So does he? The reason why I think that this receiver room is so good and why they can be a top 3 in the SEC is that they allow you to expand what you're doing beyond playing it safe. Because when the game gets tight, how many times have we seen with Auburn, and this predates Hugh Freeze, when the game gets tight, you suddenly have to do something to try to win that you haven't executed all year. Those teams have put you in that position.
Right.
So you need your quarterback to drop back in the end zone, find the hole in the zone, throw that fade, beat a guy, and he hasn't done that all year. Because you've been trying to stay away from the things that they don't do well. Well, right now they feel like they have the playmakers and that these guys are the type of playmakers that you can run anything. And, even if it's a bad call, they might go up and make a play.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing, if we're talking about the confidence that people have in Peyton Thorne. I think it's more so the confidence in the people around Peyton Thorne than it is about Peyton Thorne as much. Because in my opinion, it's one of those things where it's like, man, it's difficult to mess this up. Like if you mess this up, then it's like at some point in time, you're like, are you point shaving, dude? Because you've got too many amazing weapons out here for this past game to not be improved as far as the numbers are concerned. Now, again, how much better is Peyton Thorne year over year? I listened to Sam Jackson talk about this, and he's like, "Oh, we're going to start to see that 2021 Peyton Thorne again." I'm like, we actually saw 2021 Peyton Thorne last year.
Yeah,
he just didn't throw the ball as much.
Yep, that's it. He was there.
Yeah, and you don't have those, if we're being honest, those outside receivers that are definitely NFL caliber receivers. Yeah. Right. And so he's got the NFL caliber receivers. Hugh Freeze is making definitely a concerted effort to say, we're going to throw the ball more this season. When you talk to him, he was like, yeah, it's the least I've thrown it my entire career. Like, it's just like, you can expect that's not going to happen again this season. So you're going to see closer to the Peyton Thorne numbers that people are used to. But as far as how much better he's going to play, I don't know. I think we've seen the ceiling of what Peyton Thorne has as far as his ability. But I think the results will be better this season just because everything around him, from how they're scheming it up, the number of attempts that he's going to get, and the playmakers on the outside have all improved this season. So that raises the level of the offense.
Yep, agreed.
But yeah, so the question again, top three. Can this team have a top three wide receiver room this season?
Okay, so I think that what Kalen DeBoer wants to run at Alabama, we'll see how he adapts it, because Jalen Milroe is a more dynamic athlete than Michael Penix was.
Okay.
Agreed?
True. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
for sure. I mean, Jalen Milroe was one of the more dynamic athletes at quarterback in the country. So that's that's not shade to Michael Penix to say that. Yes.
So I'll be interested to see how much he utilizes his athleticism and what effect that has on his normal run to pass ratio.
Okay.
So it's not all about the talent you have. Sometimes it's about the opportunities that you give those guys to make plays. That's part of why Auburn's wide receiver room didn't do much and Peyton Thorne didn't do much. They have a ton of opportunities to do so. They took the ball out of their hands and they played it safe last year. How safe is Hugh Freeze going to play it this year? I don't think he can afford to play it safe. I think he's got to give those guys opportunities if he wants to go out and continue to recruit dynamic playmakers.
Right.
Guys, show that you're going to give those guys opportunities to catch the ball. If you don't, it will 100% be used against you in recruiting. Right. So top three, well, who do you have to beat out? Well, you're going to contend with Alabama, like them or love them. They've been recruiting the skill positions at a really, really high level. They've still got Ryan Williams from this class. Make no mistake, Auburn absolutely wanted that kid. It would have been a complete coup to recruit him in the same cycle that you got Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman, but okay. And then you're looking at, I think, LSU has been doing really well at wide receivers. So in the absence of Malik Neighbors, like, who steps up there, right? Like, what do we see coming out of them? They had a really good wide receiver room. Now, obviously, their quarterback won the Heisman and, threw for a lot of yards, almost 4,000 yards, and ran. He was the second leading rusher in the SEC. So they found a way to do both. And I think that you just can't ignore that. Now, will the next guy be able to be as dynamic a playmaker as Jaden Daniels was? I'm not so sure. Nussmeier, I got my questions about Nussmeier. I think that LSU fans think he's going to be great. I'm in between. I mean,
Nuss is a good quarterback,
right.
but your statement is he going to be as good as Jaden Daniels? I don't know. Like, Jaden Daniels still oddly disrespected for what he did last season, but I don't think if you sub out Garrett Nussmeier, that offense does the same things that it did last year with Jaden Daniels, even though they had the dynamic Malik Neighbors, they had, Brian Thomas. I get that but they still have some. Kyron Lacey's coming back for that team. They've got great wide receivers again this year. I just don't know his ability, Jaden Daniels' ability to make a play when the play wasn't there is something that I don't think Nussmeier has in him.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. The Redskins are itching to name him the starter. Like, he's doing really good at camp so far from what I've seen. They really, really like him. So that seems like it's going to translate. And then who else are they competing with? Well, obviously Brady Cook and Luther Burden, they have a chance to be one of the most dynamic wide receiver QB combos in the country. Now, we did a whole segment on this. I really like Brady Cook. I think Luther Burden is an absolute dog. So, I mean, that's going to be really hard to contend with. And also, when you have a guy like Luther Burden that will command so much defensive attention, other guys get an opportunity to make plays. And Brady Cook is the type of quarterback that can go out and find those guys, right? So Luther Burden creates mismatches defensively. And when you got to figure out, when you have to dedicate so much energy in any sport to stopping one guy, somebody else is going to have an opportunity. It makes stars out of other guys. And then I think all eyes are going to be on Ole Miss and Jackson Dart, right? He's got Trey Harris returning, and Trey was formidable. He was a great playmaker last year. I think Jackson Dart had a phenomenal season. He's looking to improve on that. Lane Kiffin is really, really confident in not only Dart's passing ability and his knowledge of the game and processing of the game, but just as a leader in general, he's right where Lane Kiffin wants him to be.
Yeah.
And since he's been a head coach, Jackson Dart projects to be one, if not the best, that Lane Kiffin has coached. So it's going to be interesting. That's what you're up against if you're Auburn, right? Having a productive wide receiver room means having a quarterback that can deliver the ball to them, right? And having a scheme that allows those guys opportunities to make plays. So getting into the top three, I think in those first three games, Hugh Freeze is going to get a good idea if he can open it up.
Yeah. Going
into SEC play. I think they're going to test the waters to see if these guys can make the routine plays, be where they're supposed to be, find the open holes in the zone, if they can execute. Now, going into camp, what did we hear from Hugh Freeze? He said, I'll be really disappointed if it doesn't look sharp, because we have narrowed it down to the things that we think that we are good at and we can do at a high level. So these guys go out after a whole spring and summer and they can't execute. I'm going to be mad.
Yeah, it's going to be disappointing.
I like that energy from him, though. Yeah. I like that energy from him, though. So, that being said, how much of that involves getting the balls to your wide receivers? It starts with Cam Coleman. This conversation begins and ends with Cam Coleman. He could be, I'm not ready to say this, but give me 2 more weeks after we got a scrimmage coming this Saturday. He could be Auburn's first 1,000-yard receiver in 25 years. Ronnie Daniels, ladies and gentlemen, 1999. That was the last time Auburn had a 1,000-yard receiver. We had some guys come close. Darvin Adams, obviously playing with Cam Newton, came close to over 900 yards. But those guys went all the way to the national championship game and still didn't break the 1,000-yard mark.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think it starts with Cam Coleman. If Cam Coleman has the season that you expect, other guys are going to get opportunities to make plays when teams start to say, hey, we got to stop this guy. I think Keandre Lambert-Smith, even if he does what he did last year, that was still way better than anything Auburn had on there, right. On their, in terms of production last year. And if you add that to a guy who maybe has the potential to be a 1,000-yard receiver, yes, you could be bordering on top 5. Top 3 will be about Rivaldo Fairweather being a stud as well, too, right? And creating some creating some mismatches there so those guys stay open. So, yeah, I'm with it. I think that they're bordering on it. Are they top 3? Oh, they got some stiff competition, man.
Yeah, listen, man. Did you even mention Texas and all this?
I did not. Quinn Ewers, obviously, yeah. It's a lot. It's a loaded SEC.
Like, when you look at the passing offenses that could emerge this season within the SEC between Oklahoma, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, they're just, I don't know, man. I think it's going to be difficult for Auburn to be a top 3 unit, but definitely not bottom of the barrel, which is where that wide receiver core was last year.
Bottom of the barrel. Do you have some stats on that? You got some stats on that?
Right? I mean, as far as the number of yards that this wide receiver unit produced last year, 98 total receptions for the wide receivers last year. 98. Again, I'm not using Rivaldo Fairweather in this number. I'm just talking about people who played wide receiver position. Only 98 receptions for the totality of that unit. When we go back and look at this graphic, right, and we look at these guys that are gone plus the returners, only 98 receptions amongst all of them, producing 1,314 yards.
1,314 yards.
Combined, right? You're talking about maybe Cam Coleman being a 1,000-yard receiver himself.
Yeah, right.
The totality of the wide receiver room last year, 1,300 yards, is insanity to even, that's a crazy statement to have come out of my mouth right now. Returning receptions and yards, you only have 26 total receptions between Camden Brown, Caleb Burton, 331 yards for those two gentlemen in an Auburn uniform last year. Now, again, you add what Robert Lewis did and Keandre Lambert-Smith did to that as far as returning productivity, it paints a better picture of what you got coming back on the field. But that's poultry under anybody's numbers, metrics, whatever. It's not a good, it's just not a pretty picture right now. Again, is that all on the wide receivers? Are the wide receivers just terrible? No, I still stand by that wide receiver room was better than what the production looked last year, but you can't ignore the numbers and how bad they were as far as the production of what the wide receivers had. The pass game just wasn't. I'll say this again. I know we're talking wide receivers. For Jarquez Hunter to almost run for 1,000 yards last year, in light of what I just said to you about the production from the wide receivers, should tell you how good Jarquez Hunter is.
Yeah.
How good Auburn was as a run team last year, despite the fact they didn't get any help.
Yeah.
But yeah, wasn't very good. Wasn't very good at all last year from the wide receiver perspective. Can they be top 3 this year? I think that's a tremendous jump to make, to be from dead last in a group of 14 to make it into top 3 of a group of 16. But I think they can be in the top half of the conference, right? I think they can be in the top 8, maybe even, like I said, creep into the top 5, like you said. I don't know about top 3. I'm not ready to go there yet. A lot of that is going to be on how good is Peyton Thorne, right? Like the wide receivers can get you better, but Peyton Thorne's got to be way better. And I'm not putting it past Peyton Thorne. Again, I wasn't a guy who was very high on Brady Cook going into last season, and he proved me wrong.
Yeah, I was. I definitely was high on Missouri going into last season, but I understand any hesitation one might have about Missouri in general, certainly.
So, I mean, same thing for a guy like Mertz down there in Florida, right? Like he was, I think when you look at the numbers, and Kenny B was very gracious in putting this information out for me when I talked to him the other day about Florida. Graham Mertz was the highest completion percentage of any SEC quarterback last year, right? Like, and I wasn't very, so you can have a guy who looked pedestrian one year and come out the next season and put up really great numbers. I'm not sure if I'm ready to see Peyton or say that Peyton Thorne's going to take that kind of leap, but he's going to be better than last year, and the wide receivers will definitely be better than last season as far as production is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. Improvement is you're talking about picking it up off the floor, because that's where they finished. They finished on the floor. So it does start with, we're talking wide receivers, but it does start with the guy who's throwing them the ball. If you're the receiver, and we talked about this repeatedly, receiver is one of the few positions on the field where you are the least in control of your destiny.
Right.
You can run the perfect route. You can beat your guy. You can be exactly where you're supposed to be. And something else can happen completely out of your control that causes you not to be able to get the ball. Either the line fails, the quarterback gets sacked, if the quarterback doesn't see you, he throws a uncatchable pass. Like, just a lot of things that can happen. And on top of all that, you might be just going up against a great defender who makes a good play against a well-thrown ball.
Right. Like we saw the clip. Some people might have saw the clip of Perry Thompson today going up against J.C. Hart at practice, and J.C. Hart makes a good play to break up the pass, right? It happens. Now, the thing is, I think we have guys this year that win those opportunities more than they lose this season.
Yeah.
Last year, we just didn't have a lot of guys that would win in that opportunity.
Corey was, Michael Casagrande. Thank you, Corey. Corey was saying, I guess some Bama beat writer posted that video of Perry Thompson and that incomplete pass. And Corey, let me know if it's the same one that was actually defended by J.C. Hart, to try to paint a narrative that the receivers aren't as good, I guess, as they're being hyped.
Oh, okay. Or I have to our DBs are actually really good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's camp, right? So you expect plays to be made on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
it just is what it is. So I don't, this was a guy that was committed to Bama and flipped to Auburn. So they wanted him.
Yeah,
they wanted Perry Thompson.
Any conversation of an Alabama fan beat writer that Perry Thompson is not good or won't live up to the hype that's coping. That's coping talking, right?
Yeah, yeah. As a whole.
Bama fans are they're in a very desperate cope mode right now for some reason, largely across the internet about any top. I think because Nick Saban isn't there and people are ready to write the eulogy for the Bama program. They're very defensive right now. And every time you mention anything about them potentially taking a step back from having the greatest football coach of all time, it seems disrespectful to them. And it's like, you do realize, again, we're talking about the best ever. Yes, anything less than the best ever is going to be a downgrade. That's not an unfair statement to make.
Yeah. There was something that I wanted to mention when you were talking about the total number of receptions at the wide receiver core had last year, 98.
98, yes.
98 total receptions. Malik Neighbors had 89 by himself. Right. Luther Burden had 86 by himself.
Yeah.
Right. Xavier.
Now they were heads and tails above the vast majority of the SEC.
But that's wild, right? Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like they had one had 12 less catches, the other one had 8 less catches than a whole receiver room.
Right.
That's kind of wild to me, but okay. Brian Thomas, he had 68, right? Looking at some guys on this list, I'm thinking, Trey Harris had 54, and he returns as one of the best in the league. But Luther Burden is back with that 86. He caught 71% of his passes. And you said they produced 1,300 receiving yards. Well, Burden had 1,200 on his own, and Malik had 1,500 on his own. Right? That's how bad the production was.
Yeah.
And I'm saying the production and not the players.
Right.
Because I believe that the problems were systemic to some extent. Now, of course, guys can make plays. I just think the players shouldered, an uneven amount of blame when there was enough blame to go around for why that number was so low. But I think it's important to put that in perspective. 1,300 for a whole group over 12 games in a bowl game. And, you have receivers in the conference that essentially put that out on their own. But also, they were given the opportunity to do so. Now, a lot of these guys had double the receptions that Auburn's receivers had targets.
Right.
Even Keandre Lambert-Smith, he had more catches at Penn State than any Auburn wide receiver had targets last year.
Correct. Yeah.
So, they've got to put the ball in the air more. You've got to give them more opportunities to catch the ball. There just weren't a lot of opportunities to catch it.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest thing that I anticipate changing this year for this offense is the opportunities to be there more for pass catchers. And I mean, to the point that you made earlier in this, they have to be. If you want to continue to recruit playmakers and you want to convince young quarterbacks that this is the place that you can come play quarterback, you've got to put the ball in. There is not a 5-star quarterback that's out there in high school right now saying, man, I can't wait to hand the ball off 40 times a game.
Right.
None of them are saying that. They're not like, yeah, man, I can't wait to hand the ball off to see some great running backs all game. They're not saying that. You got to put the ball in the air in order for them to say, this is an offense I can see myself going and being effective in.
Cam Coleman is so good. I think that he should be around 100 targets this season. Personally.
Somebody else said that in one of our comments about Cam Coleman potentially having 100 targets.
He should have 100 targets. I mean, going back and look at these numbers again at the top wide receivers, if we're going by targets, Malik Neighbors had 128, right? Luther Burden had 120. Leggett had 97. Squirrel had 96. Ricky Purcell had 87. Brian Thomas had 87 targets. Trey Harris had 87 targets. The best wide receivers in the country are bordering on 100 targets.
Yeah.
You got to throw the ball at Cam somewhere in that range and give him an opportunity because, some of these guys, look, I talked about it last year. Neighbors, he dropped some balls last year.
Yeah. Like we can look at, I'm looking right now. His drop rate was 5.3%, right? So it's not like it's
but on a much higher number than most people. Yeah. So I mean, if you look at the times where he had dropped some of them critical times, it just didn't matter because they were just going right back at him the next play.
Yeah, it shows he had 5 drops last year, but
that was more than that. Yeah, it was more
I was about to say I don't know that 5 is an accurate number on this. But
I thought I had 3 in one game.
Yeah.
So you're telling me he didn't drop it, but 2 balls the rest of the season. Yeah, okay. And this is somewhat of a subjective stat. Everybody counts drops differently. What's the guy's name? Clark Brooks. Man, he Like if you sneeze, he counts as a drop. Like, I mean, his numbers are double what PFFs are. But the truth is that every wide receiver drops the ball sometimes.
Yeah,
it's going to happen even with the best of them. But do you have the confidence to go back to that guy? And I think that Cam Coleman is, I think he's the type of guy you just go back to. Now, I don't expect that he's going to drop a lot. There's nothing that suggests that he's going to suddenly have a case of the drops at Auburn.
Right.
He just finds a way to catch every single ball. At Central, I went to about 2 or 3 Central games last year. He was catching balls thrown behind him, in the air, too low, over the top.
He did it at A-Day.
Oh my goodness, dude! He was finding a way to catch everything that came at him. The touchdown that he caught from Peyton Thorne, the ball was underthrown. He found a way. He found his way back to the football, made the catch, shook off the DB, got in the end zone. Come on, man! Right? Just throw the ball at that guy in the volume and let him work.
Yeah.
So again, if he's not in the range of the guys that we just named that were here in conference last year in terms of targets, I'm not putting that on Cam, man. I'm putting that on the staff. And I expect that they're going to throw him the ball. I don't think this is a conversation we're going to have again.
No, listen, if we're having a conversation about why Cam Coleman is not getting the football 3 games into the season, I'm going to be very upset. Like that, those weekend tailgates or post-game situations are not going to be pretty.
Well, we're not going to, it's not going to be like I didn't see him. He didn't see Cam. No, like, when you drop back, I don't care if he is the invisible man out there. You're throwing it where you thought he was supposed to be.
Right.
That's how much I expect him to be targeted this year. And I think that will pay dividends for the other guys, because once he shows that he's the home run threat every play, Robert Lewis, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, if these guys get on the field, and even Sam Jackson, if we see him. So it'll be interesting, I think. But you got a guy in Robert Lewis that they thought enough of to add to the Bolitnikov watch list.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was very interesting because of all the guys in this room, I didn't expect them to put, a true freshman on there, but I think Lambert-Smith, would have been the first guy I would have thought would have made that list from Auburn potentially. So it's very interesting. I think, the calculus from those people is Cam Coleman's going to get a lot of attention. Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to get a lot of attention. That means Robert Lewis should have a one-on-one a lot in the slot. And last year, the slot receivers were the highest producers in Auburn's offense last year. So if you're putting all of that together, you're saying Robert Lewis should get a lot of opportunities to catch the football this year. And he's proven albeit at Georgia State, that he can be productive as a wide receiver. So good for him, man. I'm glad that he's getting that opportunity to move up to a P5 school and then get national recognition as potentially a threat as a pass catcher. I'm looking forward to seeing what Robert Lewis can do this year.
Corey, I found the tweet by Casagrande. Let me say something. In the comments, he is moonwalking backwards. Now, they had a viewing period today. I didn't make today's viewing period, but there are going to be more this week. The media is invited to the scrimmage. We didn't get invited to any scrimmages last year.
Yeah.
They are invited to scrimmage, but we can't take any video, so we won't have any. We'll report after. They also don't like for us to live tweet from the scrimmages, just so you guys are aware. So after, we'll do a show if you guys want to hear about how the scrimmage went. But it's being done in Jordan, and I think some high-level boosters and some other people will be invited to watch, but the media will come this year. And, I think Freeze wants people to get a glimpse at what is in store. So the wide receivers, I think, are the biggest piece of that this year.
Yeah.
Right. And Auburn becoming balanced offensively, because we know Jarquez Hunter can run the ball. We believe that with Connor Lew and Dylan Wade and who's our guy? The other guy on the offensive line I'm thinking about.
Perry Lewis?
No.
I mean, Jeremiah Wright?
Yes, Jeremiah Wright. Yeah, returning here. That
Percy Lewis. I said Perry, but Percy Lewis. Yeah.
That they're going to be. They have a chance to be a solid unit this year. So I expect that Peyton Thorne's going to have a decent amount of time to throw the ball. He's going to use his legs when necessary, but he's going to look to lower that rush attempt number from last year and get the ball to his wide receivers. That's what he wants to do. Now, I asked him about this, and he was like, look, man, I don't want to run the ball that much.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do it. I mean, he had north of 100 rush attempts last year,
which is by far the most he's had in the season.
Yeah, take a lot of those away and give those opportunities to the wide receivers. That's what Peyton Thorne wants to do.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. But, yeah, look, man, I see Casagrande walking this back. But the truth is like, he claims he just walked up at the end of the period and that was the play he caught. But, that's not something I would have posted unless I was making a point about the DB.
Yeah.
Right. If the DB was the focus of that, then yeah, okay, look at this great play that JC Hart made, but that's not what you said. You're focused on Perry Thompson. The Perry Thompson Alabama wanted. So no, we're not doing this. We're not going to start this conversation about these guys being busts because that's what he's laying the foundation for. Trust me.
Yeah.
He'll whip that one back out, if Perry struggles, which he's not going to, dude. He's not going to.
Yeah, I think it's a little disingenuous to say that's not what I meant by posting this one clip that was not a highlight by any means. So whatever. I mean, screw that guy. I don't even know him, but maybe he's a good guy, but screw him. Anyway, we're going to get to your comments here and so we can take a look at what's going on in the minds of the Auburn fan base. But you are watching the Midweek Rapport brought to you by the folks at the Rage Room. Make sure that you guys go ahead and like that video while we're here. And we'll take a little quick break and we'll get back with your comments.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
You guys know the deal. Hit that join button. Join the Green Name Gang. We appreciate you guys for joining our community. If you're in the comments right now and you're looking around and you're like, hey, why is not my name black and everybody else is green? Well, that's because you haven't joined as a patron. Help us keep the work that we're doing at the War Report here going by hitting that join button. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. Our community has done a great job with this. I see we had a few donated just a second ago. Let's keep that going here. We got about 25 minutes left on this show. Love to see 50 donated memberships before the end. So thank you guys for that in advance. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast network. We're bringing you guys lots of audio only content. So if you see it on YouTube, you can listen to it on podcasts. The Auburn Express Uptempo College Loop and Just a Sec pods, bringing you guys lots of great Auburn and SEC sports entertainment. I want to thank title sponsor Rage Room. Right? Look, put your rage in a cage at the Rage Room, Opelika Rage Room at 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama. Also, if you're in the Birmingham area, 2616 7th Ave, South Birmingham. They've added axe throwing, as Ike mentioned at the top of the broadcast, at the Birmingham Rage Room. Now, there's a place here, Ike, I learned from our guy, Alexander Miller, the owner of the Rage Room, down the street from the Rage Room that does axe throwing. So in the spirit of community, they're not adding axe throwing to the Opelika Rage Room. But if that place stops doing axe throwing, they will add it immediately, and they're here.
That's what happened with the Birmingham one. There was a place in downtown Birmingham that had axe throwing that closed, and so the Rage Room was like, "All right, well, we'll do it."
Yeah. So just a note there if you're wondering why can we throw axes in Birmingham but not in Opelika? Well, they're trying to be great members of the community. I was there for the ribbon cutting that they did yesterday with the Opelika Chamber. Great members of the community, awesome sponsors of the War Report. Also want to thank Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop for sponsoring us. If you've seen a lot of our one-on-one interview content, that's brought to you by Vintage. Now, it's graduation season. They've been really busy over there at Vintage, but they're gearing up for the season. And guys, if you want to take your ladies out to celebrate an Auburn win, Vintage is the place to do it. So visit them. The address is in the name, 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. That's over by the mall and the movie theater. Also want to thank show sponsor JOYMODE. Been having fun with these ad reads, Mike. Let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. That's where our friends at JOYMODE come in. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that gives you that extra dose of confidence that saves you the embarrassment and hassle of a traditional erection pill. JOYMODE Sexual Performance Booster is an all-natural, science-based backed solution to increase blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. Comes in the palm-sized packet like your favorite electrolyte powder. Stirred in 6 to 8 ounces of water. 45 minutes before the boom boom activity, and watch the magic unfold literally. Visit usejoymode.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Again, use joymode.com, 20% off plus free shipping with code REPORT. I did use it before the gym the other day and had a great workout. So it's good for that too.
All right. JOYMODE, the pre-workout for any workout. All right.
If it's not a workout, I don't want it. Throw it back.
Let's get over here into the comment section before we continue the conversation. Props to the folks who have gifted memberships today. That's Martin, Stephen Neely, and Brian Hancher, all giving memberships today. 5 from each of those folks. Thank you so much for that. As always, we get our comments kicked off with super chats. And the first super chat, well, the only super chat I've seen so far is from Alan Berry, who says, I do believe you can put some stock in results you see in the spring and summer. And I do think the wide receiver room is good. My question is, how good are the DBs?
Kayan Lee is good. J.C. Hart is emerging. Keontae Scott is good. Listen, man, this is a good DB room. In a spring and summer and fall, you're going to get, when your team is good, you're going to see a mix of plays by the receivers and plays by the DBs. If any one side is dominating, you've got some questions. Period. Right? Like, and Hugh Freeze has talked about this. We've had other coaches that have talked about this. When one side dominates, you're not left with a great feeling one way or the other. What you want to see is you want to see a mix of, hey, when a 50-50 ball is thrown, well, sometimes you want your DBs to win those.
Right.
Sometimes you want your wide receivers to win those. At the end of the day, when it comes down to playing another opponent, you want both sides to win. But if your DBs are never winning those in practice, how much confidence do you have that they're going to go out in the SEC play and win those? I wouldn't overreact one way or the other to one side, succumbing to the other side. You want it to be even, and just as long as it's not too lopsided on either side of the ball, I think Auburn's okay.
Yes, indeed. I mean, yes, I think the DB room is going to be good this season. I don't know how great it's going to be, but I remind people, Texas A&M's DB room was absolute cheeks last year, but nobody could throw on them because the front seven was so good. It's not just one or the other when you're talking about defense. There's a symbiotic relationship between your pass rush, your run defense, and how good your defensive backs are going to be. I think they're going to get some help this year from that front six, front seven. So look out for Auburn's defensive backs to be out there competing really well. We'll kick it off with a chat here from Sub-Zero, who says Cam Brown's going to show something. I feel it. Listen, I'm a fan of Cam Brown. Yeah, I know last year he had some rough moments, but I think he's got potential to be a really good receiver. The only thing I want Cam Brown to do is play up to his size. He's a big body receiver, and he plays too small sometimes. If he figures out how to use that frame that he has to be more aggressive in the way that he attacks the football, he's a monster out there physically. He needs to be able to use that size a little bit better. I'm hoping this year that he gets an opportunity to showcase that. I just don't know how many snaps he's going to get. We've talked about this before. How many snaps, how many targets, how many opportunities is Cam Brown going to get if everyone who's in front of him on the depth chart stays healthy? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the difficulty for him. Corey Weber jumps in and says, y'all see the we already talked about this ex-Bama writer posting about Perry Thompson's drop pass. We talked about that already. Richard jumps in and says, do we think this offense will average 250 plus pass yards per game? This is a good question. This is something we actually already had on our agenda for tonight, but no time like the present to talk about it. What can be the production from this pass unit this year? Is 250 plus per game a realistic number for Auburn to be able to get this season?
Yes. And by today's standards, that's
average.
Right.
And that's why I would emphatically say, God, I hope so.
I don't want to say that's low, but that's average. Now, 250 yards per game means Peyton Thorne's a 3,000 yard passer. And Auburn has only had 2 of those single season 3,000-yard passes in the whole history of the program. So, yes, that would be a great season for Peyton Thorne when you talk about the context of it being at Auburn. Now, is 3,000 going to win you the SEC? Probably not, unless you have a really, really good running game. I think that you got to be closer to 3,500 yards passing to compete. But we'll see. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how many opportunities he gets. So if you don't increase the opportunities by 140, right, and get him close to 400 pass attempts, Peyton Thorne needs to be in the high 60s to low 70s in terms of completion percentage. Now, can these receivers be good for a 10% increase in completion percentage? Right? Some of that's going to be on them. Some of that's going to be on him. But that's where it comes down to. But 250 plus a game puts Auburn, I think, in almost every game they play, sans Georgia.
Yeah.
In Athens. I think if you're telling me they're going to pass 250 yards a game, I have a hard time picking against them in any game outside of Georgia.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some nuance there, but I agree with you. If that pass game is in that range, you're scoring more points, you're converting more third downs, and you're keeping the ball more, which allows you more opportunities for your running backs to be able to impact the game. Yeah, I mean that's a drastic improvement over last year. You can't get into the what if scenarios, but just for a moment, the what if scenarios of that productivity last year, Auburn wins 2 to 3 more games last year.
Right.
You're talking about an 8 or 9 win Auburn last year if you're throwing for 250 plus per game. So I find it hard looking at that schedule, as you said, Mike, seeing a 250 plus pass game performance trotted out there, plus a 1,000-yard back in Jarquez Hunter, and not seeing 8 to 9 wins on that schedule at minimum. That means the defense faltered in a couple of games. Really, that's going to be enough, I think, to secure you a couple more victories to get to that mark.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. 250, man, with some of the performances we've seen from quarterbacks recently, that feels average. It feels average. So if you really want to compete, then you've got to find a way to get those yards up. And I was trying to pull up here on PFF what the yards were last year in conference. But, you had, a few guys over 3,000 yards passing easily, right? So, Carson Beck was up there. We know Brady Cook was up there. Jalen Milroe fell short of that, but his team made the playoff because they were able to do other things at a high level. Right. 250 would be a great goal, I think, because that's, about 80% better than what you did last year, which was 1,700 yards.
Right. Yeah, like I said, that you get to that number, and then you're in a different kind of conversation about what you're doing offensively, which allows your defense to rest more, which allows your run game to be more effective. Like, it is a trickle down effect on the rest of the team if you're doing that sort of thing. Connie, speaking on Jackson Dart, I saw someone else talk about this. Is Dart hurt or not? Someone help me out. I did see a report about Jackson Dart potentially getting hurt at a practice, but Ole Miss has since rebuffed the rumors that there's anything wrong with Jackson Dart. So no, he will be out there for Ole Miss.
Yeah, he's fine. It's weird the things that people will start, but
yeah. I mean, listen, Keandre Lambert-Smith, actually TK said this earlier. Folks got worried about Keandre Lambert-Smith when he rolled his ankle. He was running fine today. Yeah, KLS is good. He was out there today with a taped ankle, but doesn't look like it's anything that's going to make him miss.
We legit posted a video of him going through drills with Cam Coleman and Robert Lewis. Same day everybody was asking about his ankle. And I'm like, look, man, if he had a serious ankle injury, I don't think he'd be out there running the drills that we saw. He'd be somewhere getting taped up inside in the shade.
Yeah. So, I mean, but he was running with a taped ankle today at practice, but it looks as if he's going to be fine. So no worries so far for any of the pass catchers that we've talked about today. D-Lev jumps in and says, if Coleman isn't open, throw it to someone else. Don't force it. We have too many weapons. I will say this. I will say this. What do you consider not open for Cam Coleman? If he's double covered
is one thing. Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
but if he's covered, do I still throw the ball to him? Depends on who the DB is out there.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like you went out and you got him because this is what they're saying. Those 50-50 balls, they expect them to be 80-20 for these receivers that they're recruiting.
Yeah.
So, at that point, obviously you still have to throw a decent pass, right? Like if he's covered. But, if there's a difference between covered and doubled. Right, like if it's just Cam Coleman and a DB, I'm picking Cam Coleman 8 times out of 10, assuming that the QB is going to throw a catchable ball.
Yeah,
but we just seen him win way too many of those. Now on the high school level and now in practice here at Auburn to think that he's not going to be able to do that. I mean, he was a top 5 overall recruit for a reason, and like I said, I think forcing it only means like. He's got a DB on him and a safety over the top, and you're trying to throw a perfect pass in there or something like that, right?
Right.
Yeah. In which case, somebody else is open.
Correct. Marcus Holland says, watch Lewis's tape. Speaking of Robert Lewis, listen, we did watch Lewis's tape. There is a whole watch the film on the channel for those of you that are Green Name Gang. I think it is, at this point in time, I've moved it up to being patron only, so you might have to be a patron to watch that, but we did go through a whole film session on Robert Lewis. So if you are part of the Green Name Game, go watch the film playlist and see if you can view that Robert Lewis film. It's out there for you all. We do our due diligence over here at the War Report. I still owe you guys some Keandre Lambert-Smith tape, so I'm not gonna forget about that. Another super chat here from Damian Prentice, who says, loving how Auburn is under the skin of these other fan bases. Reminds me of the good old days when they were worried about us. It's getting there again. In particular, Notre Dame fans are losing their absolute. Just, oh my God, they are melting.
Wow. Look, I've actually seen some posts from some reasonable Notre Dame fans here and there about this whole Deuce Knight situation. But yeah, look, man, it's not a good look for you, I think. I mean, I don't know that Notre Dame and Auburn have really had any head-to-head recruiting battles that I can remember.
I mean, last year, Riley Leonard was rumored to be coming to Auburn, and he ends up at Notre Dame, right? So I guess that's one they got theirs last year, and then maybe this one would be Auburn's time.
I don't know. I don't know how serious the Riley Leonard thing was. I just was like, look, man, you're gonna lose some. You're gonna lose some. And Hugh Freeze is out here. NIL has made this thing different, and you just get used to it, man. Like you're gonna lose some recruits to other schools.
But I don't think that NIL has anything to do with Deuce Knight's recruitment. Like, is Notre Dame just not? Is that what the rumor is? Notre Dame doesn't want to pay him any NIL, and that's why he doesn't want to go there.
I think that Auburn is a lot more aggressive in how they're using their NIL, but Freeze really wants to go out and get a quarterback in this cycle from the high school level, because regardless of whether you get a portal QB next year, you need your future at quarterback in the room next year,
for sure.
Right, like, and so if that's happens to not be Hank or Walker, then like I said, you or if you're seeing something there, either way, you got to recruit. You have to recruit. So Auburn is they're using NIL, I think, in a very smart fashion in comparison to some other schools, and they saved some money last cycle. We told everybody they weren't going to go out and get.
This is the whole reason they did it, though. Because he wanted to have some money in the coffers to swing on somebody if he needed to this time.
Yep, that's it. So they didn't waste that money, and said, listen, man, we're going to ride this thing out with Peyton. We still think he's serviceable. And we got to go find the potential future of our quarterback room. Now, listen, the guy could be in there. If you're Hugh Freeze, you don't always know that, because you never know how a kid is going to develop a response. So you have to keep recruiting that position, and you got to recruit high-level guys. Remember that Georgia had Justin Fields, Fromm, and Jacob Eason in their QB room at the same time.
Right.
All those dudes took starting jobs somewhere. Fromm obviously stayed at Georgia. Justin Fields, we know, went to Ohio State. He turned himself into an NFL player. And Eason, I think he went to Washington.
Yeah.
Did a pretty good job up there. It's going to happen, man. You're going to lose some really talented guys sometimes. And picking the right guy is Like give yourself as many good choices as you can, because I would argue that Fields was the best of the bunch. They let him get out of there.
Right.
Yeah,
it's definitely going, like, if you are recruiting the right way, you're going to over recruit, as some people might say, a position where somebody talented gets overlooked sometimes. And but we said this on the last show, you have to recruit in a way that you can't just put all of the eggs in the basket of, like, it's this guy or bust. No, like, we need to, hey, if it's not this guy, we got another 4 or 5 star that we can replace him with. And if it's not that guy, we got another 4 or 5 star we can replace him with. It can't just be, man, well, we already have one quarterback. Listen, Texas is doing it right now. They went out and they had Quinn Ewers in that quarterback room. They had Malik Murphy and they still went out and signed Arch Manning that next recruiting cycle.
Yeah.
Now, Malik Murphy was like, all right, I'm out of here. But that's why you have Arch Manning sitting there on the sidelines. If Quinn Ewers gets hurt or when he's out of here, you've got the next guy up. And they're already going out there and they're trying to get the next guy, which is, what's the kid's name from here in Bama that they're recruiting for this next cycle? The Texas commit right now. That's
Lacey.
Quarterback. Yeah.
Lacey. Yeah.
So they're not sitting there saying, well, we got Arch Manning. We're done. He's going to be the next guy for the next couple of years. Like, nah, we're going to go get the next one. And then we're going to go get the next one after that. We're not going to stop recruiting at quarterback just because we have someone who we think is really good. So that's what you have to continue to do if you're Hugh Freeze. And he knows that, right? Like, this is not Hugh Freeze's first year recruiting. He understands that though I have Walker White sitting on the bench right now, I need to go get another 5-star to make sure, or another 4-star plus quarterback in the next cycle to make sure that I continue that progression there. You have to do it. Alan Berry super chat says these two things can both be true. Winning in state is important, and getting the best players, regardless of where they are from, is also important.
Well, yes, and yes, but Auburn has not really had a national recruiting presence for the most. Now they went in and they got the one offensive lineman committed from California. Yeah. And it's just not as common. But even for Saban, the base of his recruiting classes were Southern based. I mean, it's just, and then yes, you go out and you find a kid like Bryce Young. I think he was a California kid as well too,
right? To
come into your program, because that's where you say you get the best players no matter where they're at. But you're not getting half your class from California, right? Most of those 4 or 5-star kids were homegrown.
Yes,
you like, your backyard is one of the most fertile recruiting grounds in the country. Right. And it removes a lot of recruiting challenges that you have. Here are some of the things that come up in recruiting. Parents want to be able to see their kids play. Kids want their parents to come see them play. Right. If I commit to a school on the other side of the country, that's a lot harder for them.
And it puts a lot of additional strain on not only the relationships that you have during those tough moments in the season, but also just on the relationship that you can potentially have with the high schools that you're having to recruit in the future if you're not doing that. So it is, I think, and we've said this before, I think it's an oversight to not try more diligently. From what we've heard about the method in which they're going about it, they're not making the inroads into those schools the way that previous staff. And this was the downfall of Coach Harsin.
Yeah.
He wasn't making the connections.
Every year that passes that you don't do that, right? Like, the other coach is establishing a stronger foothold there, and it's going to be much, much harder for you to just say, okay, we get it. We need to go recruit Alabama. But those coaches are like, yeah, no, I don't know about this guy.
Right.
So, and maybe they tried and they failed. Yeah. So, because we don't know. For sure. But, like,
let's be clear. If they've tried and they failed, it's even more dangerous.
Yeah, it should be even more concerning.
You should be worried.
Yeah, you should be worried. So I don't know. I just don't. I don't know how. Well, I do know how, because the enormous amounts of copium that are coming from Alabama fans on this topic is crazy. And here's the dire nature of their situation. A 9-win season for them would be a disappointment. right? A 9-win season for Hugh Freeze would absolutely set the stage for him to take over in the coming years. So, that's what happens when you follow up the greatest coach of all time. The bar was set really, really high, and there's really nowhere to go but down. You can't really go up from what Nick Saban did.
Yeah.
So, good luck with that.
Yeah. Actually, all of the worst luck with that.
I feel bad about saying this, but I want to see you fail.
100%. 100% want to see you fail in this scenario. All right. Let's see if there's any more chats in here. If not, we're gonna P-Roll 2 times says, stop sleeping on Perry just because he arrived in the summer. We are forgetting that Perry was Cam before what happened at A&M for Cam to fall into our lap. Perry is a grown man.
P-Roll ain't nobody sleeping on Perry.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, we're not sleeping on this man. As a matter of fact, go look at the official Auburn Twitter or Instagram account, and there's a whole graphic about Perry Thompson with a tweet from the War Report posted right on that bad boy, talking about Perry Thompson and him being a guy to watch. Well, we're not sleeping on him, buddy. Trust me.
Yeah, no.
Not that you're saying we're sleeping on him, but
yeah, I think some of the fan base is, fixated on Cam Coleman and think, but listen, man, to hype up Cam Coleman is not saying anything bad about Perry Thompson. Like, Cam Coleman deserves every bit of hype that he's gotten so far. He was there in spring camp. He was there during the A-Day game making those catches. And, if we're being honest, he is the higher rated receiver of the two guys. So he deserves all the hype that he's getting right now. But to your point, Perry Thompson is going to be formidable. He is the more out of the box, ready to go guy.
For sure.
As far as his body composition, the kid came ready to play. And he's a very different receiver also than Cam Coleman. Like, if you go and look at how he was utilized in high school, for a kid his size that's running jet sweeps in high school and returning, but he's just a very different kind of straight line speed guy. So the fact that he can be utilized in a very different way and get his opportunities in this offense means that he's going to probably get opportunities earlier to be able to play on the field with Cam Coleman. I don't know, man. It's a very, the potential for what those two guys can be on the field together it's amazing, right? Like, I can think of a multiplicity of ways how this could be very unguardable with the right kind of offensive scheme deploying them. And I'm looking forward to seeing it happen.
We've seen a few times in SEC history when you get receivers like Jefferson and Chase together, and it's like, who do you stop? And then all those other receivers
and
that
all
they
you
had
needed
around
was Joe
them,
Burrow to throw him the ball, and now it's impossible to stop this offense.
What was Thaddeus Moss they had out there, I think, with them, and he was really good. And there's another one of them that's in Carolina right now.
They had a dynamic.
Oh my goodness, yeah. But Chase and Jefferson made everybody. It made them unguardable. Their passing game was unguardable.
Right.
I talk about how 2019 LSU got their toughest defensive test from Auburn, and Burrow still threw for 340 yards in that game. That was the toughest time he had throwing the ball all year, and he still threw for 300 yards because his receivers were dogs.
Right.
So, yeah, could Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson be Jefferson and Chase good? Well, if they find a quarterback that can throw it like Joe Burrow, yeah, that team's making the playoff.
For sure.
Yeah, that team's making the playoff.
Yeah. 100%. That's an offense that you don't want to have to face. You don't want to even game plan for. All right, that's enough of us talking, man. We are going to get out of here. Mike, can you remind the people one more time of all the ways that they can support what we've got going on at the War Report?
Yeah, you guys know the deal, man. Hit that join button. If you're looking around the chat and you're like, why don't I have a green name? Well, that's because you haven't hit that join button yet. So you can join us by joining the War Report for $5.99 a month. Help keep the work that we're doing going here. You can also give the gift to the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate everybody for doing this, guys. Look, we have a great community. I think we have 20, 25 memberships given away today. We appreciate you guys for doing that. Listen to us on podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, the War Report is there, and we've got you with some great content. So if you missed the live show and you want to listen on your way to work, This will be on podcast for you guys tomorrow. The Auburn Express Up-Tempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec podcast, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. I want to thank show sponsor Manscaped. Got sizzle alert. The summer is here. Let the only thing smoking at your BBQ be the grill and not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code RAPPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's make the summer sizzle for all the right reasons. Keep your meat neat. Just rolls off the tongue just right. Also want to end by thanking
all pause.
Our title sponsor, the Opelika and Birmingham Rage Room, guys. Look, man, put your rage in the cage at the Opelika Rage Room, 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama. Or if you're in the downtown Birmingham area, head on over to 2616 7th Ave South in Birmingham, Alabama to get your rage on. Also, they've got axe throwing there in Birmingham. So if you guys want to do that, they've got you covered there. When you get to the desk, please be sure to tell them that the War Report sent you. Now, if you guys have birthday parties, the corporate team building, they got you covered there, man. I'm telling you, it's a very unique experience. You get to, at the Opelika, they have car smashing now.
So
you can
get to pretend like you're on Street Fighter.
Jump on a car and beat it with a bat. It's amazing. It's great stress relief. So, like I said, tell them the War Report sent you, and then come back and thank us for sending you over there.
Drake Barefoot jumping in at the end, gifting 20 memberships.
My guy.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it very much. Once for everybody who doesn't know, once again, Drake is also the guy who made this plaque that's behind my head right here. And
hey, I need one of those, Drake.
Yeah, and he made it's not plugged in right now, but he made this. It's a little light up War Report.
What? You got two things? I got zero. Drake. Come on, bro. Let your boy like G up. I need one of them wooden plaques.
Barbara Wallace jumps in. Assessment of the offensive line. Will Thorne have time? We will talk offensive line in a later show. We're going to go break down that O-line room. But yes, I think the offensive line will be good this season. I'm looking forward to what Connor Lew is going to bring as far as leadership along that offensive line. But yeah, we'll get deeper into the offensive line room on a later show. But thank you so much for the question. Before you get out of here, make sure that you do the necessary, sharing the content with somebody out there. Make sure you are liking this video. Give us that thumbs up right there below the YouTube channel. Follow us on the social medias, the War Report on Twitter and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow morning with another morning drop. Yes, the morning drop is back, and your guy Ike Jones is bringing you that daily content that you have been needing right here on the War Report. But until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Oh,